One of the more challenging parts of my journey was realizing that my patterns were dysfunctional. And I've heard this from so many people in this community where you externally have it all together. You are high functioning, you're holding it down. Maybe you're keeping everything together in the house, at your job, the kids are taken care of. Everything seems like it's all functioning. And so we can very much determine our internal environment by looking at our external and be like, well, everything's taken care of. I'm paying the bills, the house is clean, or, somewhat when we're busy. But it can be really difficult to see the internal struggles of what's going on within us when we're so used to holding it together. We're so used to being high functioning and making sure that everything is taken care of, and often leaving ourselves not being taken care of. And so I want to share this part of a blog post I wrote, and I'm not going to share the whole thing, of course, here. I'm not just going to read that, but I will link it here so that you can read the whole blog post if this resonates with you. But I want to share some of these messages because these are some of the experiences I had in my life that I did not even realize the cost of them in the long term. Time and time again, I had the right answer on the exam, doubted it, and switched it. I talked myself out of it and became so frustrated by my lack of ability to trust myself. Time and time again, I was in a good mood and enjoying the day, but then someone I was close to would sigh in a way that I sensed a sense of disappointment, or they would be silent, but I could pick up on the energy of the room and then internally try to process it all and take it on as my own burden, like it was my responsibility to smooth over whatever was going on. Time and time again, I would stare at my screen, exhausted from the day, feeling pulled to take a break, but the anticipated guilt of doing so kept me glued to the chair, pushing myself further like I was my own drill sergeant. Time and time again, I would listen to someone's complaints, placate them, calm them at any cost, even if it meant silencing myself, then spending the following hours dissecting the interaction and feeling frustrated with myself. Time and time again, I would seek out others' opinions and validation, subconsciously thinking that everyone had the right answer, except for me, yet ignoring my own internal voice. Time and time again, I replayed the past in my head and gave myself harsh criticism, never showing myself grace. Those are just some of the ways that this self-abandonment has shown up in my life. And living these experiences, they seemed innocent, they seemed subtle, they seemed like no big deal. This is just what I'm doing. And I didn't realize the cost of it. And where the cost came was the disconnection within myself and the feeling like I was responsible for everyone else's emotions, feeling like my emotions were being ignored. I had a hard time trusting myself. I would rely on the external world to say where I was, to validate my experiences. I felt like when my external experiences didn't match my expectations, then I would just work harder. I would come down on myself even harder. I would try to please more people to fit in their lives. And I felt like I was on this hamster wheel that I just could never get off of. And I didn't realize the cost of this. I was devoting every ounce of my energy to being the good girl, to being the good employee, the good student, the responsible person, the dependable one, a good listener, the happy girl. And yet I was just leaving myself behind. My true essence was in the dust. I felt like I was doing everything I needed to do to create this life that when I had this life, then I should be happy. And the thing is, every time I tried to create the next step of this life I thought was supposed to be what would make me happy, it left me feeling unfulfilled. And it not only left me feeling that way, but I felt disappointed because I didn't have the emotions that I expected I would have when I finally got to this next step that I thought I should be getting to. The thing is, I realized through this whole journey was that choosing myself became extremely hard. Cognitively, it seems very easy. Just choose yourself. But it's so challenging for someone who, for my entire life, I would make sure everybody else was okay. I would be in tune with other people's emotions. I would ignore myself. I would think that the harder I push myself, the better off my life will be. The more critical I am, then the more controlled things are, then the better off it will be. And I didn't realize in the process that I was truly just abandoning myself. And that is where once you wake up to that, it's hard to unsee the patterns of your life. You start to see how so many things in your life were just replaying the same beliefs that you've had for maybe your entire life. And I share these because a big part of self-abandonment is realizing that you are abandoning yourself. And this is one of the more challenging things about self-abandonment because there are so many things that enforce self-abandonment. You know, society praises hard work and sacrifice. The more you sacrifice, the more you're praised and the more you want to. And especially if you have this propensity to be the good employee or the good girl, you continually do that because maybe fear the repercussions of not doing that. And then you get into relationships that maybe you choose that expect you to uphold those standards of abandoning yourself, where you are just keeping everybody at peace, smoothing things over, placating them. Maybe you're the one who's always fixing things, taking on people's burdens, always being the good listener, the one that just constantly is there for people, and you're just draining your energy in the process. And so there's a lot of pressure for you to maintain that standard because when you are willing to sacrifice your energy and your resources time and time and time again, people start to expect that of you. And then to change that dynamic, you start to shift a lot of things. And you're going to meet a lot of backlash once you start doing that because that energy source that maybe people have been relying on for years starts to become diminished for them. And as you start to take your energy back, it becomes this point of contention and resistance that people are going to fight you on that because they become so used to your energy being available to them that the minute you start to take care of yourself, the minute you start to choose yourself, it is them filling that void. And so there's so many things that contribute to this sense of feeling like you have to abandon yourself, that you have to relinquish your time and energy in order to feel safe, in order to feel like you're doing the quote right thing. And so it's so important to recognize these patterns because as long as you stay unaware of these patterns, you will only continue them. And there are so many deep-rooted causes of why you're doing this. And so if you're hearing this, the last thing I want you to do is feel guilty for it or feel shameful for living in this way. But there are so many deep-rooted causes of why we experience this and we live like this that are belief systems we've developed from often childhood that keep us running, that keep us trying to feel this sense of safety through people pleasing, through self-sacrifice. But once we are aware of these patterns, and like I said earlier, once you see it, it's hard to unsee it. It's hard not to see how you are continually relinquishing your time and energy to things outside yourself, or how you're constantly seeking out external validation and then self-doubting yourself, or how you're not trusting your own inner gut to say what was the right answer. And then you choose maybe to listen to someone outside yourself and it doesn't go well. And then you're like, see, I knew all along, I should have just trusted myself. So tune into yourself. Ask yourself, do I constantly relinquish my energy and resources outside of myself? Do I say yes all the time just to avoid the shame of maybe having to say no or trying to avoid disappointing someone? Do I overextend myself often? Do I try to fix the energy in the room or try to smooth things over? Do I take on the burden of other people's problems as my own? Do I feel drained after being with certain people, but yet continue to expose myself to those people? Ask yourself some of these questions. And once you start to bring awareness, that is truly the first key and not abandoning yourself and starting to take your energy back and starting to live a more empowered life and starting to live a life that's in alignment with the values that you have. If this resonates with you, I am launching a membership in January to help you take back your energy, help you realize your worth, that you're worthy of more, help you set boundaries, help you implement self-care. And so this membership I am so excited about because it's going to bring in a lot of women who are experiencing many of the same things. And while we have no shortage of information in the world, what I find most people struggle with is the implementation. How do we actually take all these things that we know to do and put them into our lives in a way that we actually are transforming from the inside out, where we actually have a different experience, where we feel seen, heard, and supported? And so that is why I'm so excited to be offering this membership in January, because these are all the things that I find so many women struggle with, especially when they have been self-sacrificing, that to do this on their own and hold space for themselves is so challenging. And so that is my vision for this membership, to hold space for you so that you can experience that transformation in your life. So if this resonates with you, I invite you to send me a direct message. I am now offering the lowest price I'll ever offer for this membership to founding members, and you actually get to be part of the creation process. This is going to be curtailed to exactly what you need in your life, to exactly where you struggle the most. And I hope this episode has allowed you to bring some more awareness into yourself, to realize that maybe some of these patterns are no longer serving you, and that you can, in this moment, choose a different path. You can start to heal some of those patterns. You can start to change your beliefs, and you can actually change your life from this point on. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm so grateful for you spending your precious time with me.